Welcome to Knitting on the Farm podcast, episode 16, and today is the 26th of January. It is a Tuesday afternoon, so it'll probably be Wednesday by the time this is uploaded and you're watching it. So welcome to my podcast where I chat about things that I am making, which is usually always knitting, sometimes a little bit of snowing, sometimes a little bit of sewing, but the majority of the time it is knitting. So you are most welcome. I do hope you've got a nice cuppa or a drink and that you are ready to sit down and just spend a little bit of time while I share with you what I've been up to in the last 2 weeks. I don't have as much as what I expected to share, and I'll chat about that towards the end of the podcast, but I was dithering and waiting another week until I would have some more, but I don't think that's just the way I want the podcast to go. I think I just want to record every couple of weeks and let you see what I've been up to and just take it from there. And if there's lots of content, fair and good, and if there's not so much, fair and good. I've always said my podcast is what you see is what you get, and I just want to carry that motto through in 2021. So places that you can find me then, I have them all printed or written down below in the drop down bar, but just to say I'm most active on Instagram, where I am knitting on the farm with all the underscores. And if you are across there, if you look on my bio, there's a little link to Linktree, and I have all the links there for podcast and the make along. The Vlogmas is still up there, and anything else that's of interest or related to the podcast. I have a Ravelry group which is worth mentioning because I want to chat a little bit about it at the moment. So way I'm going to run through today's podcast then is I wanted to give you some Ravelry news, share with you what I've off the needles, share what is on the needles, some Postie joy. I also want to share some joy of podcasters that I have been watching that I think you might enjoy. And then I have a little section which I have called Life's Lessons and some chat. So yes, let's get started with some Ravelry news. As I chatted the last day very briefly, I think that I had decided to run a year-long make-along this year, and it is called Gifting Through the Year 2021, and I have the thread for that open over on Ravelry. It is a finished object thread only, and I think I have the chatter turned off. I found it difficult just to sort out drawing for prizes, and watching some other podcasters, I think this is maybe the easiest way to do it, especially when it's going to be a year-long thread. The idea behind it is then that as you go through the year, that you divide your gift knitting, if you do gift knitting, throughout the 12 months, so that when it comes to December, hopefully we can sit back and maybe knit something for ourselves, have a sigh of relief and enjoy the build up to Christmas. Yes, Christmas, it's only over and it'll be with us again in an absolute shot. It always does. This year I found I had done a little bit of gift knitting when I was totally enthusiastic in January and February. Then I fell away by the wayside, and sort of November and December I ended up being really busy. And I found with Vlogmas, it took the joy out of maybe doing Vlogmas because I had to have knitting done as well, and Vlogmas takes up quite a bit of your knitting time. So this year I want to really have my gift knitting finished in November so that I can enjoy some knitting for myself in December. So that's the idea behind the thread across in Ravelry. If you're using Instagram, it would be great if you use the hashtag Gifting Through the Year 2021, and that way I can keep up to date with all the lovely photographs of your finished things. Just to give you the definition of a gift, it doesn't have to be for someone else, it can be for yourself. After all, if you knit yourself a pair of socks, it is a gift. Or you can be knitting for your family pet if you need a blanket or it needs a coat, etc. And it also covers all types of garments, so anything from mittens through to blankets, through to using hundreds of grams of yarn. It really doesn't matter. All I would ask is that you are knitting with more than 20 grams, and if you have just used 20 grams and you're knitting 2 or 3 of the one thing, just add them into one thread. I'm going to draw prizes then each quarter, and then in the month of December I will draw one main prize that is going to be drew from all the entries. So that's what December's draw will be. So I think that is probably everything in Ravelry. If you have any problems with it, leave a message over in the general thread in Ravelry, or send me a direct message on knittingonthefarm@gmail.com, privately on Ravelry, or even a direct message just through Instagram, and I'll pick those up. So yes, let's move on then to some of the things that are off the needles, or rather should I say one thing that is off the needles. So as I said, my knitting time this last couple of weeks has been considerably less than what I expected. And then my friend Lindsay from Stitch Create Love asked me if I would like to do a test knit for her. And I think I mentioned the pattern in the last podcast, but I can talk about it a little bit more now as I have it finished. Ta-da! So Lindsay was designing a cowl pattern called Spring is in the Air. And she knit hers in some beautiful bright colours that were gifted to her by her husband. And as you can see from the photo there, it is using 6 minis. That was what she designed the pattern for. I used 6 different yarns that I had in my stash. Mainly 4 of them were from my Sherry Iris sock clubs, be it both in the countryside from 2019 and Life of Birds in 2020. And I also used some yarns from Ellie of Craft House Magic. So this is the finished cowl, as you can see. I thought I'd put it there and let you see it, and I'll add in some photographs. So I will take it off and have a chat with you about it. Now, as you can see, that colour, I think that colour shows it quite well. As you can see, this is a cowl with the lovely motif of a heart. And I was looking at it just over my chair earlier, and it was hanging upside down. And when I looked at it upside down, I could visualize a leaf. So I thought, ideal for autumn. And as you can see, the colours I've chosen are quite autumnal. You'll find over the period of time that you watch me, I don't do really bright colours. I don't feel terribly comfortable in them. And these are just the colours that I'm really comfortable with. So I will share them with you. I'll fold it in half that you can maybe see. So this colour here was one of the colours in the sock club. It's an 80/20 superwash merino and nylon, as is all of the sock clubs that Sherry Iris has done so far. There's a slight hint of pink in there. Then moving on to this colour with some browns and greys. It's another sock club. This one then is one of Ellie's. I knit a shawl in it last year. Can't remember the name of it. I should have looked that up. This is from Ellie's Belinda Carlisle range, and it is 50% camel and 50% silk. This colour is Circle in the Sand, I think. Absolutely beautiful yarn. The drape is fantastic. So soft, and if you can see the stitch definition, I just can't praise it highly enough. It's a beautiful yarn. The next one then is another one from the Sock Club, slightly different from this one. Not a lot, but it is slightly different. And then the final yarn is Heaven is a Place on Earth from Ellie, the Belinda Carlisle range. This one here was from Stash, and I can't just remember, I'll not say because I can't just remember who it's from. So I used 5 colours in the actual cowl, and then used the full colour, not variegated or anything, for the band top and bottom. The pattern, what can I say about the pattern, apart from the fact that, like all Lindsay's patterns, it is beautifully written. It is so precise, so accurate. It covers a short written version, a longer written version, and also a charted version. I think there are 11 pages, but don't let that put you off, because you can print out just the sections that you need. That's another photo. Lindsay covers her idea behind it. She gives you ideas for using different yarns, for using minis or using full skeins. I think some of her test knitters have maybe used full skeins, so watch out for that. She gives you some information on sizing, some information on the format. It will be a paid for pattern, obviously, so I don't want to give you too much away. That is sort of instructions in the short form, and then you go through to she also covers, she has the charted instructions as well, which are written, and you have a box then where you can sort of tick off so that you know the progress you've made, which is really good. I'm just flicking through here to see if there's anything else. Excuse me. I think the only other page then is actually the chart, and I really don't want to show you too much of it, but there is a chart as well. As I say, really detailed. Nothing is left for you to think about. Everything's marked out from where you put your markers, etc. It's a very simple pattern of lace, and I could recommend it because of the detail for a beginner lace knitter, and you should have no problem following the instructions at all. It's not a long pattern, and some of the rows are repeats, so you shouldn't have a problem, I would say. And as I say, you know where to put in your markers, etc. So there's nothing left to chance. So that is the Spring is in the Air coil. I think it's coming out on the 29th, which will be Friday, and it will be on Ravelry, and I think she'll also have it maybe in her Etsy shop. So she is Stitch Create Love over on Instagram, and she's also on Ravelry as Stitch Create Love. So definitely worth a buy. And as you can see in the bright colours, it's lovely and cheery. That would be nice for coming into the springtime. And then you can see it in the more muted colours, doing it the way Lindsay intended, and it would be nice coming into the autumn time. So it's wonderful how the colour just of the yarn changes the look of the pattern. And as I am becoming more mindful of what I knit, I am looking at things like that rather than just picking a skein and knitting it and then thinking, oh gosh, I don't really like that. So I'm trying to be more mindful and match yarns to patterns and vice versa. So I'm afraid that's the only finished object I have. It took approximately 101 grams of yarn, and I still had this amount sort of left over in each skein, and I would say there was about 50 grams, and those are left over from socks, and you know, there's 30 to 50 grams in most of the yarns that's left over from my socks. So yes, a really enjoyable knit, and pop across on Friday to Lindsay's and pick yourself up a nice pattern. Okay, we'll move on then to something that I have on the needles. The first item then that I have on the needles I showed you last time as a half finished object, and I'm a wee bit further forward than I was then. And this is the apple muffin socks. And the pattern is by Gwen Mueller. I will just find my notes here to chat to you about it. I am knitting it in a yarn from my sock club from Sherry Harris. I think it was maybe the November colourway. The colourway was called Pheasant colourway, and I started these then back in December, on the 22nd of December, and haven't them finished yet. So they still have Christmas progress keepers, and they are still in my Christmas bag because I need to leave them there to get them finished. So that was the first sock. I praised this yarn and boasted about it on the last podcast. I said I didn't do the pattern on the foot because Andrew thought it might be a bit clumpy inside his shoe, and he doesn't like that. So I omitted it and just did it on the leg on a 2mm needle, and did the heel as per pattern and the toe as per pattern. The heel came down to 18 stitches, and I normally do 20, and we'll see how the fit of that goes. He did try it on, was happy enough, so we'll see just with wearing. So that was the first sock that I had finished a couple of weeks ago, and this is how far I have got on with my second sock. I have the leg completed, and I have you can see I have the heel flap and the turn done, and I am just starting on the decreases. So once I get them done, I think I have about 40 rows then plus the toe to do, and that will be these finished. And it'll be great to get them off the needles. I thought I would have had them off the needles at this stage. You'll remember in the last podcast I talked about my knitting schedule, and I had down to have these finished in February, so I'm doing well. I got three out of 4 of the things on my schedule done, and I'll chat about the one that I haven't got started yet. So that's the apple muffin socks in yarn by Sherry Harris, the Pheasant colourway from the Life of Birds sock club. 2020. So that's my apple muffin socks then, and that's definitely a pattern I'll be knitting again. No hesitation. It's sometimes hard to say that, isn't it? Because you're inclined to knit it and say you'll go back to it and never get round to it, but I definitely feel that that is one that I will knit again. So the other item then that I have on the needles that I'm going to talk about today is the Metamorphic Sweater by Lisa K. Ross. And this I said I was knitting for my son for his birthday in June, and I chatted about how I also wanted to knit the smaller version for my grandson. So this is the pattern. It is the Metamorphic Sweater by Lisa K. Ross. I'm doing it in this grey and blue colourway, and I've got on quite well with it actually. It's an easy knit because I have the colour work done and it's just round and round now. So I'll show you how far I am and then I'll chat to you about the yarn. I should have probably put it onto a bigger needle. So I have the top finished. Let me see if I turn it to where the needles are rather than, and then I have the colour work complete, and I'm working on the band. It's quite a slim fitting garment, though I think when maybe that's not exactly accurate when it would be off the needles. Sorry, faffing. But yes, really pleased with it. Loved the colour work. Simple to do. Just the two colours at any one time, and I really enjoyed it and got into the swing of using both hands a lot better. I think because the wool is finer and it's only acrylic, so it's probably not as toothy, but it definitely was easy to knit with. I'll give you a close-up of the colour work. This was a lovely progress keeper from my friend Cherie of Ollie and Bella. I shared them in Vlogmas. So because I'm knitting it for my son and I don't want washing to be a problem, I decided to use some acrylic yarn. I chatted about this as well. It is Stylecraft Special. That's the label. And the three colourways are Simple Grey, the blue is called Aster, and the navy is called Midnight. As I say, it's 100% acrylic. 100 grams is 322 yards or 295 meters, and I'm knitting it on 3.5 and 4mm needles, which is just what the pattern called for, and I am knitting size small mans. So I've got on really well with it. As I say, any moment I've got to knit, I just have been sitting down and doing a few row round and round. I would like to at least get 5 row done in the day, but we'll see how that goes. So that's the Metamorphic Sweater. definitely it's worth a try. And I think the colour work in it too is simple enough even for a first time project. If you have knit in the round before, and especially if you've done a top down construction before, it would be a nice addition. And because it's at the bottom of the sweater, or in the middle, sorry, of the sweater, it sort of keeps you going and keeps the interest there. So you have your shaping, and then you have your colour work, and then you just have some nice simple knitting at the bottom. So that is everything then that I have on the needles at the moment, apart from my fern and feather, which I haven't even looked at. I know where it's sitting, and that's about the height of it. So I am going to share with you now some goodies that Postie has brought. I did say then the last podcast that I had decided to purchase some yarn for socks this year from the sock club that Ellie from Craft House Magic is organising. So I have January's yarn here. I think it maybe came even the day that I podcast, but I didn't put it in then because I didn't want to spoil the fun for anyone else. So if you haven't received yours yet, I checked with Ellie and I think she thought most people had. If you haven't received yours yet, look away for a moment or two and I'll tell you when to look back. So the theme of Ellie's sock club for this year was music from the movies, and I thought that was quite a good idea for me because I am not terribly into music and even movies for that matter. I would listen to a lot of Christian music, so modern day or any type of music outside that I don't have a great knowledge of, so it's a good way for me to learn something as well. So the theme for the month of January then in music for the movies was taken from the Labyrinth film in 1986, and it is a song from David Bowie called As the Wind Falls Down, and this is her interpretation of the song. With Ellie's club, you were able to choose the base that you wanted to use, which is brilliant. I love Ellie's high twist base, and that was what I chose this month. It is 80% superwash blue faced Leicester and 20% nylon, and it's 365 meters per 100 grams, and of course it's 4-ply. So there's lovely greys in there. The little mini is grey too. And there's just enough purple going on there to give it a splash of colour. I think that's pretty. That's showing true to colour. So it's really nice, and I did intend to have this knit in January. There's two reasons why I don't. One I'm going to chat about, and the second one is my ball winder has broken. So I need to wait on one of those coming before I can cast this on. There also was There also was a tiny complimentary 5 grams in the package, and it's called She's Like the Wind. There's about 73 meters in it, which is really nice, which would be perfect for a scrappy project or even a toe on a sock or to start a cuff. So that is my first sock club purchase from Ellie. I've already purchased her February one, which will be coming next month, so hopefully I will get caught up. I did leave myself in my schedule some quiet months to catch up, so I'm hoping those will kick in. Okay, I'm finished then with the sock club, so you can come back and watch again if you haven't received yours. The other thing then that I purchased was some just invisible thread. It's not very exciting. and I'm going to put this into the tops of some of the cuffs of some of the socks, just to see if it'll help them keep shape for Andrew. So that was another purchase. It takes the tiny boring things in along with all the goodies, doesn't it? I also had been on the lookout for some labels for hand knits that I would knit for gifts, and these just arrived today. They are from Rachel of Sew Ray Me. They are like a suede effect. Probably look like leather, but they're not, thankfully. And it just says handmade with love. And the idea is you can put it around the hem of an item and stitch it on, and it's actually quite good for coils because it gives you the idea of the front or the back, and they're nice to put onto gifts that you're knitting for people. So I purchased some of them, and the other thing then I purchased, couldn't miss a progress keeper, and it's a little toadstool, and I'll show you why I purchased a toadstool. Just a second till I get it. I wanted another duffel bag, so I approached Jeanette from Crafty Clegs Creations, and of course Jeanette never lets you down. So she had this fabric in her shop and she made me this. So now you see why I needed a toadstool progress keeper. It's another duffel bag. Look, full rabbit on the bottom. So I purchased the duffel bag and also the DPN needle cozy and a little notions pouch for inside the bag. Cute rabbit just kicking through. Isn't the fabric beautiful? It's so pretty, and it's lined with like a heavier cotton, which makes it nice and sturdy. And then it has the duffel toggle, and I love a drawstring or a duffel bag because you can turn it down and make it into your basket, and that I really like. So that was all that came in from Postie. Let's move on then to share some joy. I have a lovely friend that I've got to know. She's actually from Northern Ireland, but she lives in the south of England and she's lived all around the world. And myself and some friends in our Zoom group teased so much and encouraged her so much that she started her own podcast. And Ruth is just brilliant. She has put out 2 podcasts, and she says that she's an amateur, but the podcasts are just fantastic and so professional. And she is Ruth Loves to Knit on YouTube here. So pop across into your search bar. I'll put the link down below, and give her a watch and a like and a subscribe. She really is very good, and if you like seeing lots of knits because she just knits so fast and has so many projects, she's the girl for you. But I just wanted to mention, because she has a giveaway on her second podcast, and all you needed to do was just put a message underneath the podcast, just telling her how you are getting through or surviving this pandemic, be it the actual pandemic or be it homeschooling or anything else that's associated with it, maybe even living in the house when someone's working from home. And she has 2 lovely pattern prizes for that, and they are from Thistle Glen Designs. So hopefully I'll get all this into the show notes below. So pop across Ruth Loves to Knit. Then one of my other friends, Dawn does a vlog and a podcast, and she is called Dawn's Days, and she also has a shop on Etsy, and I have just started to watch Dawn maybe just before Christmas. Her vlogs are fantastic and her podcasts are really good. She has a nice studio that she goes to in a little sort of a little creative village. I can't remember what she calls it, but she has a studio there where she shares all her lovely crafty things, and she's really nice to listen to, and she's fun. And she told me to tell my viewers that she is absolutely fabulous. So okay, Dawn, you are absolutely fabulous. So that's the couple of podcasts that I'm just going to share with you today, and it might be something I'll keep in each podcast, and we'll share the love out around all the other crafters in the community. My final little chat with you is some life lessons and a chat. Just after I recorded my last podcast, that night Andrew came home, and my son come rushing through the door. Mum, Dad has hurt his hand and it's quite bad. And I thought, okay, yeah, Andrew always hurts something at the farm. It's just an occupational hazard that you get kicked, or something squashes you, or you fall, pushed, whatever. So I didn't pay much attention really until I seen Andrew coming through the door and realised that he had hurt his hand really badly. The only good thing was he was actually wearing a glove. He wears gloves that are made of they're made of sort of wetsuit type quality fabric, and to be honest, if he hadn't have had the glove on, I'm not quite sure whether he would have his hand now or not. A gate that works up and down rather than out to the side had come down, and his hand had got caught in the pulley of the gate, so he cut it really badly from here across to his his tiny pinky, and ended up with 13 stitches in it. So that put him, and he still is, out of action. That was 2 weeks ago. He couldn't do anything really for the first 10 days apart from sit in the house, hence my knitting time has been so little. I said to him last night, I think in all the years we're married, this is the longest we have spent together, unless we've been on holidays, because he just never is in the house for any length of time. And you most certainly don't find Andrew sitting in the house all day unless there's something really the matter. He's usually, even if he has a really bad flu, he gets out of bed, goes to milk and comes back home again. So this time he hasn't been able to do anything apart from just continually get it dressed and take antibiotics. It has been an uphill struggle just to get it to heal. He's finished with the hospital and he's just going to our local nurse now at the moment to get it dressed every other day. So it's getting there, but it will be a while before he'll be able to use it to do very much. So that was why a lot of my knitting time has been void. To be honest, when I did get a minute or two in between things, I just was sitting down. Because Andrew was in the house, we got doing a lot of paperwork and things that needed caught up on, which was good, but it has taken me a wee while to get used to him being in the house as well. So that's why I called it Life Lessons, because I had sat down and I had made out my knitting schedule, and I chatted to you folk about what I planned to do through the year. Little did I know when it would come to uploading the podcast that this had happened. That was why I had no show notes under the last podcast, and I apologise for that. So it really taught me a lesson that you just never know what's going to happen, and in a way it's good that we don't know what's going to happen. But one thing that has brought me a lot of comfort, and I'm sure you all know that I am a born again Christian and that I rely on my faith for everything. When I don't rely on it, I should be, and I fall short every day. But one verse that came to mind was found in the New Testament, and it was Matthew 6 and verse 34. And in one version it said, "Therefore take no thought about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take thought about the things of itself. Sufficient to the day is the trouble thereof." And not only for Andrew hurting his hand and things changing dramatically here for a while, even in the midst of the pandemic and all the things that your mind goes crazy thinking about. I mean, I go from, am I going to see my grandchildren for their birthday? Am I going to see my children for their birthday? When are we going to get meeting? When can we meet without having to worry about social distancing? Am I going to get my vaccination? How long will it take till I get my vaccination? You know, right through to what are we going to do when Andrew can't milk for a period of time? And all those things, we're worrying about something that hasn't happened, that we don't know if it will happen. All we know is today we're in the midst of a pandemic. We are pretty much isolated from everyone, and we are confined to our houses except for some exercise. Andrew's confined to the house for quite a bit of time. He isn't able to milk, and that is today, the here and now. And what happens tomorrow is out of my control, it's out of your control. And God tells us to not worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will take care of itself. And I am really thankful that God directed me to that verse over the last couple of weeks, and it's something I have to hold on to every day and remind myself. But I thought it was worth sharing because I'm sure out of the folk that view this podcast, there's someone that it'll bring comfort to as well. So I thought I just would end with that wee thought, and I hope that you appreciate it. So I am going to go and make a nice warm cup of coffee. I'm going to tidy up the mess that is created while I podcast because everything just does be strewn everywhere. And I am going to get hopefully a few stitches in this evening. In the meantime, till I pop back on again, keep safe, look after yourselves, enjoy the time you have to craft, and I will see you again soon. Bye!